Hello everyone. This is the structure chart presentation by Hans Petersen, Christian Jensen, and Conrad Reif. We will begin by asking, what is a structure chart? A structure chart is a chart which shows the breakdown of the configuration of the system to the lowest manageable levels. They show how variables pass between various modules of a program or system and the hierarchy of those modules. Structure charts are very similar to data flow diagrams. This is largely because structure charts are derived from them. The only difference is that they represent the system in more detail than a data flow diagram. They are commonly used for procedural programs, and they usually show the organization of individual entities within a system. The demonstration that we chose to use is the password authentication of our project. This structure chart shows the flow of information from the user to the system and then the result of that action. First, the user has to enter their password. Next, that password is sent to the hash password method to obscure their password so that anyone trying to find their password to access the system will be unsuccessful in doing so. That hashed password is then checked against the database and it is authenticated. It is then either correct and the user is allowed access, or the user is displayed an error message saying that their password is incorrect. Now you'll see that structure charts consist of modules, which represent processes or subroutines of the system, conditions, which depict the selection of various modules based on some condition, the data flow, depicted by arrows with empty circles at the end, and they can also show loops, jumps, or control flows. In this example, the get password, hash password, authenticate, allow access, and send error methods are all the modules represented. These arrows show the flow of information as the user goes through the system. Obviously, their password has to be received from the user and then it gets passed down. And then this authenticate represents a conditional. Either their password is correct and they get to access our system, like I said, or they will receive a message saying that their password is incorrect or something has gone wrong.
There are several pros to structure charts. First of all, they help to simplify the layout. And simplifying the layout makes things such as coding, debugging, and modification all easier, faster, and more efficient. When people have this big layout of the program and all the different parts and how they relate to one another, it can make these tasks a lot easier because knowing how one part affects another part is an essential thing to know, especially when you're programming. Problem solving is also easier because a very large problem can be deducted into smaller, more manageable problems. No one wants to tackle this huge problem that's almost impossible to solve. They want to tackle smaller problems that can all come together to solve a larger problem. New programmers can also use it as a navigational tool. If you just hand a new programmer a bunch of code and files, it'll take them a while to figure out how everything works and how it's supposed to come together. But if you hand them a structure chart, they get a better idea of all the different parts of the system and how they relate to one another and come together. Structure charts do have several cons, however. First of all, they don't have a one-to-one correspondence between the chart and the program. And what this basically means is that with one structure chart, several different programs can be produced just because those finer details are missing from the structure chart. Iteration controls like while, for, and also selection controls such as if, else, else if, are also not shown, and these are some of the finer details that we talked about are excluded from the structure chart. It's also not formal. It's fairly simple. It shows a little bit of detail about just the basic structure, but it doesn't go into great detail, so that is another con to it.
Some recommendations for using a structure chart. The first is that the structure chart should be used when the system needs to be represented in greater detail. So a structure chart since we're talking specifically about each entity and how they're going to interact with each other, it is going to give us a lot of detail that for our second step of when we should use it, that we could use as a blueprint. So when the system is being developed, the structure chart can always be referenced back to for more detail on how we can continue to develop the system. The third recommendation is a structure chart should be expounded until it is at the system's smallest details. So the structure chart's not going to stop it and give us ambiguous information. We're going to keep going even down to the variable level of everything, of all the entities, to make sure that we can understand literally every small detail that there is a part of our system. And here's the references that we used.